Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. We are doing something very different today for me, something I haven't done before, which I'm very excited to do. I've been a little bit MIA due to holidays and a lot of work around the holidays. If you're in the restaurant business, you understand. But one thing I have been doing other than spending time at work and with family and friends is reading. I've rediscovered my love for reading over the past few months, and I have a lot to say. There's a hair. I can't get it. Don't worry, I'm still a mess, as you can tell by this, that I can feel it when I'm blinking. I have a lot to say about the books I finished in the month of January. I started getting back into reading towards the end of last year, and I am now full steam ahead back on my reading journey. The format of this video that I'm going to be using is going to be chronologically from first book I finished to the last book I finished in January, as well as giving them a rating, a little brief synopsis, a little bit of my personal opinions on it, and also I am not going to be giving any spoilers. I'm not going to be doing a deep dive. I'm just going to kind of talk about would I recommend this book? Would I read it again? Did I love it? Did I hate it? What's some things I didn't like about it? What's some things I did love about it? You know, you've seen a book review before, or maybe you haven't. A movie review, a song review, a game review. This is just all my opinion, okay? It is all my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. If you don't agree, tell me. If there's something I didn't get about it that made me not like it, let me know. Maybe I'll look at it differently. But the main thing is I didn't want to put any spoilers in this. And that's because I hate whenever I'm just looking to see, should I read a book? And it's like, boom, spoiler right there. And I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. I will also add here that I do not DNF books. I do not finish them. It would take a lot for me to not finish a book, even if I don't like it. Like, it would take like a scene or something crazy happening, or me genuinely disliking everything about the book in order for me to DNF it. So I will say that as well, because I do have a couple more controversial books I read. I always find that I have to finish a book once I start it. However, if I don't like the first book in a series, I just won't read the rest of the series, if that makes sense. I will note, though, that if I did debate DNFing, or if I was a DNFer, if I would have, had I been the kind of person to do that. So, with that being said, let's get right into it for the month of January. The first book I finished for the month of January, Miss Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas here. I'm also going to note here real quick, I'm terrible at pronouncing things, so if I pronounce an author's name wrong, a character's name wrong, I apologize. I'm human. I can't pronounce words. But this book is 984 pages, and it culminates the final chapter of Maas's Throne of Glass series. I started the Throne of Glass series end of summer last year. I read all the ACOTAR books, and I have heard great things about this one, so I had to dive into this series next. And these are great books. If you, in my opinion, I love Throne of Glass so much better than ACOTAR. Like, so much better. I do. It's not that I don't like ACOTAR. It's just that's an incomplete series. This is complete. This is a complete series. This book was originally released on February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2023. And I read this book starting on December 17th, technically, and finished it on January 8th. So did not start this one in January, but I did finish it in January. It is a beast of a book. I do read very fast, but like this is almost 1,000 pages. So it did take me a while. It does get a little bit dry at times when talking about like battle strategy and stuff, but I did enjoy it. It just made it a little bit slower for me to read. This book wraps up almost every storyline of the characters in Throne of Glass. Has a nice little ribbon at the end. at least in the context of the main series, because I could 100% see some novellas or like a spin-off series with some characters happening, which, with that being said, Sarah, come on. I know you're working on ACOTAR, but like, I need a spin-off. You know the characters I want to hear about. If I had to pick a favorite character for this series, there's like 5 I can't choose between, if I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of characters, but there's 5 that I cannot choose between. I love Lysandra, Dorian, Manon, Astrid, and Adeline. Like, if you haven't noticed, there's only one man in that. And that's because females are incredible in this series. The women are written very well, and their character development, as well as them in whole, absolutely incredible. But Dorian is my husband, okay? Love him. Just everything about those characters and the characters they interact with. Maas does a really good job at interweaving characters and storylines to make them make sense. For the most part, we do know that one character was essentially just forgotten about, but it's fine. There's a novella idea. What the hell was he doing the whole time? But my least favorite's definitely Elena. Can't stand her by the end of the series. And the only other character I can't really bring myself to care about, I know he has a redemption arc, but I just really still, he hurt me, you know? He hurt me, and that's Cole, Chow, however you pronounce his name. He hurt me, and I cannot forgive him or Elena. They just are not redeemable in my books. In my mind. These aren't my books. I own these books, but they're not. You know what I mean. I've never been somebody either to fully hate villains with quotes, in books, especially when they are fleshed out really well. And I feel like this book's villains are really well done. They have real intentions. They're not like, I guess like maybe 1 or 2 are bad just to be bad, but like they still have like a story. You know what I mean? Like they're not bad just for the sake of being bad. They have their reasons. Like it's not just a villain. Like there's a lot of like, there's some plot twists around the villains, but they're kind of morally gray to a degree until they're like actually bad for the most part. The way that I went about reading these books, because there's a couple different ways that you could read them. I did Throne of Glass first, and then I did The Assassin's Blade after Heir of Fire. I personally really enjoy when a prequel comes after the current time, kind of like how Star Wars did their original 6 movies. Like they had the current and then they had the prequels come out later, which I really enjoy that writing because I like knowing what happens and then seeing the backstory and then being like, oh, that's why this is later on. Like that's just me personally. I know some people hate that, but I love that. And then I also did the tandem read of Empire Storms and Tower of Dawn. And personally, I loved reading the series this way. I don't think I would ever read it a different way, especially with the tandem part, because I enjoyed seeing 2 different storylines taking place at the same time. Very entertaining and definitely broke up a lot of what was of the boring parts. Like the way that it's done. The guide I used, I will put up on the screen right now. And if I don't, it'll be linked down below. The guide helped me out a lot. I ended up using little tabs to mark that, but this is just the way that I recommend reading it because I really enjoyed it. And the tandem read seems like a lot at first, but I promise you it was so worth it. This book is 5 out of 5 stars. I would recommend this book and this whole series to anybody. It does seem a little bit daunting. It is a lot of books. I think it's 8 books. 8? I didn't look that up before making this video, but I'm pretty sure it's 8. The world building, the characters, the lore, the way the character stories intertwine with each other is all just absolutely miraculous. Not miraculous. Amazing. I don't know how to use my words. It's incredible. I highly recommend. 5 out of 5 would read again. We are going to drastically shift gears now. The next book I read in the month of January is Credence by Penelope Douglas. This book, 560 pages, And I don't know what I just read, honestly. It was published on January 13th, 2020. I read this book immediately after finishing Kingdom of Ash, started it that night, January 8th, and read it all the way through the next day. What did I read? I know I said this already, but what did I read? Like, honest to God. This book, I had heard what happens in it and some of the themes that are in it, but I was not prepared for the absolute roller coaster that this was. And by roller coaster, I mean not a compliment. I was hooked from the start, if I'm being transparent. This book opens up very, very dark. And I do like dark books. There is a lot of triggers in this. So definitely read the triggers. 100% read them. I'm begging, please. But I had to continue going. I had to. I really liked the beginning. Opening up very dark, like I said. However, yeah, read the triggers. This is a book that I did debate DNFing, though, due to the absolutely vile scenes that I read in it, but also more so due to the lack of story. In my opinion, I feel like this was just a fever dream. It focuses a lot on tension, and I feel like there isn't much actual substance to this book other than that. I know that it's sort of a finding yourself tale, like kind of like a coming of age tale, but there's so many other books that involve that trope that aren't disgusting, that don't have like straight up like jail undertones, like you should be in prison undertones. It's very blatant. They're not even undertones. Like it's spelled out for you. And there was quite a few scenes in this that I was very uncomfortable reading, and I did skip ahead to some of them till they were over. I would not recommend this book unless you are curious, like I was. And curiosity did kill the cat here for me. I give this book a solid 1.5 out of 5. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Next up is Haunting Adeline. This book came out on August 12th, 2021. It's 583 pages. And oh my goodness, what is happening? I loved this book. I really, really love this book. But also, like I said for Credence, please read the triggers. There is a lot of dark stuff that happens in this book. It is not for everybody. I really love this. It touches on so many things that might make a lot of people uncomfortable, though. So many things. I started this book January 9th, the day after Credence, because let me be honest, I needed to breathe this. No, that's the same day. Yes, that is the same day. I did start this book directly after. I needed to get something else in my brain other than Credence. But I finished it on January 12th. I feel like I need to talk to a therapist after reading this book, immediately after Credence, though. But because of what I read in the two books, but also because this book made me feel. It really made me feel. The scenery in this book is incredible. It takes place in like an old house that's haunted. I'm a sucker for an old house with a lot of character stories, and I love horror movies. So like, I love the idea of living in a haunted house. I wouldn't want to do it personally, but I think it's like a cool concept. But it's also not my dream to go through what she does. Her name's obviously Adeline. This one is really hard to talk about because I don't want to give like any details away, because I feel like this whole book is just kind of like a cluster, and any details I really give to it are spoilery, other than saying like read the triggers, and the main character is obviously Adeline and it's haunted. Like, I feel like that's kind of a spoiler, but whatever. It's in the title. What do you expect? The biggest thing about this book, again, is just simply please read the triggers and enjoy the ride if you're okay reading a dark romance like this one is. 5 out of 5. I would 100% read this again, and I would recommend it if you are up for reading a book of this sort. The next book I read. No, this is not the same book. This is Hunting Adeline. It is part 2 of the Cat and Mouse duet, which is the two books together. And I started reading this immediately after, due to the ending of Haunting Adeline. I actually bought this book first on accident because they do look so similar. Like, I know that this one has a skull and stuff, but like, when I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, I just saw it and I was like, there's the book that I was recommended. My friend recommended me this series. Shout out to you, Jesse. Thank you for the recommendation. But I accidentally bought this book first, so I had to Amazon Prime Haunting Adeline, because obviously I'm not going to read the second book first. I did that once on accident with gaming, where I accidentally bought Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings for my DS before I even played Final Fantasy XII. So I had no idea what was going on when they were talking about an old war and stuff. So I didn't want to do that with books, because I would be so confused, especially where this picks up. This book is bigger. It is 649 pages. This book is a little bit bigger. It is 649 pages. I have the second edition, I believe. Yes, second edition, which came out in August of 2024. And I finished it on January 16th. So I finished this on January 16th, and I had started on the 12th immediately after Haunting, because the way that it ended, I was like, I have to read the next book right now. I love this book a lot, but I will say that I did hate this ending. I hated this book's ending. I feel like H.D. Carlton, who wrote it, did not know how to finish the book and just wanted there to be two for the main series. Because the way it wraps up is like low-key a happy ending, and based off of the rest of the book and the book prior, it's not that I don't want a happy ending for the characters. It's the way that the happy ending was. Like, it felt really rushed, and it kind of felt like here you go, thanks for reading my book kind of thing. Like, hope this makes you feel better was kind of how the ending felt to me. I enjoyed it a lot. It's still a 4 out of 5 stars to me, but the ending is absolutely not my favorite. And please read the trigger warnings again. Next up on my reading docket for January is Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This book was highly disappointing to me. I'm so sorry, Deva. She's my friend. She recommended this book to me, said her sister loved it. This book came out August 14th of 2023, and it's only 360 pages, so super easy read, especially because I like to read a lot of books that are like 500 some. I read it super quickly. I read it from January 16th to the 18th, so not a hard read by any means, but also super easy because of the word choices the author made. I feel like when authors make the choice of what wording they want to use, if they use more like common sayings and such, it makes the book way easier to read rather than it being uncommon sayings. Like, I find more like realistic fiction easier to read than like fantasy, because fantasy usually has its own dialect and unique style for the world that's built, and you know what I mean. This book is part of a trilogy, and I am not positive that I will continue the trilogy, unfortunately. I found this book to really lack any true depth to the characters, and they seemed hollow, like every single one of them. There was no real development for me, especially compared to the other books I read, except Credence. We just don't. Anything I reference of the other books I read does not involve Credence. Let me just say that first. But there was no development or backstory, really. And if it was like a single sentence, which sucks because I really enjoyed the concept of this book, which is two serial killers who kill serial killers. And they fall for each other. Like, it's a cool concept in my opinion. But yeah, just did not enjoy the style of writing and the lack of character development / lack of anything other than romance, I guess. But I give this book 2.5 out of 5. Just middle ground. It wasn't the worst thing I ever read, but it's very mid. And it was very disappointing because I know a lot of people love this book and the series, and it just didn't do it for me. So I will most likely not be reading the next 2 books in the trilogy. I bet you thought we were done with the Haunting Adeline universe. The answer is no. The next book I read was Where's Molly by H.D. Carlton, and it is a spin-off from the Haunting Adeline universe. It's only 243 pages. It's a little novella. came out, or at least the copy I have came out in February 16th of 2024. And this book filled a hole after reading Hunting Adeline that I did not know I needed. I read this book in only 24 hours, the 20th of January to the 21st, because it's a small book. And I adored this. I adored the character, Molly. She's incredible and has overcome so much in her life at such a young age. I adore her resilience and her willingness to fight to keep her sister and other girls safe from having to go through what she did. That ties in with the dark undertones of the first two books. You don't ever actually meet Molly in the first two books. She becomes kind of like a Figment character in the second one. If you read it, you know what I mean. If you don't, maybe you should read it. It comes full circle by the end, tying it back to one of the main characters from the first two books as well, which I also really liked. And I cannot wait to read the other spinoff, Satan's Affair. But they didn't have it at Barnes & Noble whenever I went and bought this one. So that's why I didn't get that one. Great book. Really loved the extra lore. And I love that it wasn't a super big book. I don't feel like this needed to be any larger. This is like the perfect amount to just fill in that little plot that was missing in the first two books. So I really enjoyed having the option of reading this, but the first two main books can be read without this. This is a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I really enjoyed this. Bet you thought I was done with the basic book talk books, but I'm not. This book, 517 pages, May 2nd, 2023 is when it came out, at least my copy. I read this book from the 21st of January and finished it on the 26th. And dear God, it's me. I am obsessed. It's action-packed, well-written, so much fantasy. I love dragons. If you add dragons to a book, I'm going to love it so much more. The book could suck and I would still be like, oh, it's at least 2 stars because there's dragons. But this was immediately going to be a favorite of mine. And not to mention that there is so many trials that you really get to see the growth of the main character named Violet. One thing about me, I love a smart bitch so much more than a ridiculously strong warrior. You know? I love the idea of a character who is kind of in over her head, but she manages to overcome it using what she already has known. She uses her knowledge to be able to overcome things instead of trying to become like some brute warrior. She's like, you know what? I'm smart. I can figure this out and not have to stray from my own personal self. I will say that the continued battering, though, of she's so small, how will she survive? That was a little bit overdone. Like, we get it. She's a small girl. That's all we needed to hear. But that's really my only critique, is that I felt that that was slightly overdone. Even though I have no credentials for critiquing, other than I just love literature and I read a lot now. And the ending. The ending. I love a cliffhanger. I love a cliffhanger, especially knowing that there is like another book to read after. I hate a cliffhanger. I love to hate a cliffhanger when it's just like a standalone or it's like the ending of a series. But the cliffhanger and plot twist at the end, I was screaming. I was like sitting on my couch kicking my feet like a little girl. The dragons, the characters, the lore is so much lore. There is so much lore and I love it. But the details at the top of each chapter as well. Like, let me find one. Like, each chapter has a little like thing up here that is basically like either literature or correspondence from one character to the other that is put at the top, which just kind of like fills in this little thing for me. I don't know. I just love that little detail. It's the little things like that that tell me that this author cares about this series and wants it to be fun and exciting for readers. But I really loved it. It's worth the hype, 100%. I know that a lot of people say that this is poorly written at times, but not for me. I love this book. 5 out of 5. And with that being said, the final book that I read in January is Iron Flame, also by Rebecca Yarros. This is the sequel to Fourth Wing, and it is also incredible. This is the Empyrean series. This book falls directly after Fourth Ring. It's 623 pages and came out in November 7th of 2023. I read this book January 26th and finished it on the last day of January, the 31st. I'm just going to start by saying that this book's ending made me want to yell. Once again, cliffhanger. She does a really good job at that and making you want to dive into the next book. And I also want to say I'm very glad that Onyx Storm came out before I finished this, because had I had to wait, like I know a lot of people did, I don't think I could. I'm impatient. But I was not ready for some of the plot twists, especially towards the ending. Was on the edge of my seat for a good bit of the ending. And I don't know. It's just great. I do, however, rate this book a little bit lower than Fourth Wing. 4 out of 5 stars for me. Because I feel like this book had a lot of filler. Like, not as much lore and description, but like filler, in my opinion. I just feel like some of the scenes weren't needed. Like, it was unnecessary. Like, it didn't really do anything. It just kind of took up space. But I do love every time Riddoch opens his mouth. I love Riddoch. He's one of my favorite characters. I love a good comic relief character. And I love him. I adore him. I think he's great. But overall, definitely recommend this book and Fourth Wing, the series so far. And I cannot wait to get through Onyx Storm here in February. And we'll just have to see where our beloved Violet and Xaden can go after here. So thank you guys so much for watching. I read 8 books the month of January, and I appreciate you guys being here and just hearing me rant and talk about them. Make sure you guys check out my other socials. They will be listed down below. Also, add me on Goodreads because you'll get to see everything I'm reading. And sometimes I do write reviews, usually only if they really stand out or if there's something that really makes me mad about a book. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!